Learning Python. Basic difficulty. You might be wondering, what is Python? It is a high-level programming language that is often used in building softwares, automate tasks, and perform data analysis. High-level language is friendly for humans, while low-level programming language is friendly for machines. Many popular social platforms such as YouTube, Google, Instagram, and Reddit are written in Python. We'll be using Python to solve complex problems that we can face in real-life situations. First of all, we'll be talking about the data types used in Python. Data types tell the compilers how programmer intends to use the data. Compilers are a special program that translates our programming language into a language that machines can understand. Python doesn't require you to specify data types in your variables, as Python will automatically decide the data type for you. But it is still useful to know these data types and how they function. Here are some common examples of data types. String. This stores text, and each character can be accessed and edited using its index. Integer. It stores whole numbers, and mathematical operations can be used on it. Float. It stores numbers, but it can be decimals or whole. Char. Character. Stores a character. Bool, or a boolean, can be used to store true or false. Variable is a storage location that is named by the user. The information in the location can be accessed by using the name of the storage location. Variables can be declared and their values can be set and changed. The first line declares a variable by giving it a value of 1 and a name, which is variable test. The second line changes the value stored in the variable to 2. Variables can be used in other functions. On the first line, the variable test is declared and its value is hello world. Then, on the second line, a print function is used to print variable test. This will output hello world, as value in the variable will be printed. Here are some methods of editing your numerical variables such as float or integer. Now we'll learn how to input data from users and output text from the program. We use print to make your code output strings. Either double speech marks or single speech marks can be used to indicate the string. The code below print hello world will make our program output hello world. To get data from our user, we'll use the function input. This input format is at its simplest form. It simply grabs the entire line of user input and stores it as a string. When we use print for output, the program automatically outputs a new line at the end of the string. We can modify our print function to print something else at the end of the string instead. The code will print hello world with an exclamation mark, as we mark the end with an exclamation mark instead of new line. The symbol which indicates a new line is /n. When we use input for our user input, the program also registers the new line /n as an input too. To get rid of the new line in our script, we have to use the function strip. The variable sentence is assigned the value of stripped input. If the user input was hello world, without strip, the value of the variable would be hello world /n. With strip, the value of the variable would be just hello world. To convert input from string to integer quickly, use the code below. The new line in the input will be deleted when the input is converted into an integer. To use another function of a data type that is different to the current variable's data type, you need to convert the variable's data type. By putting in the shortened name of the data type in front of brackets, you can convert a variable to another data type. This is similar to what we did on the previous slide. where we took the user input, which is a string, and converted it into an integer. Looking at the code, the variable temp was a string, and adding a string to an integer would result in a type error. It's an error that is caused due to the data type mismatch between the function and the variable. But converting the temp into an integer allows the operation to perform and print the output, which is 2. Here is another example of data type conversion. Looking at the code, temp is a variable with a data type of integer which has value of 1, but converting it into a string allows it to be added to another string. Instead of output being 2, the output will be 11 as two ones are added together in a string format. You can also change value of a variable to a changed data type. The variable temp has a value of 1 with a data type of an integer. The variable tempString stores value of temp but in a string format. If statements execute pieces of code if a certain condition is true, which makes if statements a conditional. An example of a if conditional would be if a certain bool is true, then yes would be printed. The example if conditional shows if a boolean called print yes equals to true, then the conditional will print yes. Since print yes equals to true and the condition is met, this program will output yes. As shown on the code, if statements have an if in front and has a pair of brackets to store its conditions. It must have a colon after the bracket. Indentation must be applied to the code inside the if statement, as the indentation marks what is inside the if statement. If statements have other components besides if. Else and elif, also known as else if, is also used in programming as part of if statements. Else if statements can be used to apply more conditions to your if statements. They'll be executed when all conditions that came before it are false, but the condition is true for the else if statement. Else statement will be executed if all other conditions in the if statement are false. The if statement will output number is smaller than 0 when the number is smaller than 0. If number is not smaller than 0 and bigger than 0, it will print number is bigger than 0. If all other statements are false, it will print number is equal to 0. In this case, it will print number is bigger than 0. Loops are used to repeat the code for a number of times by creating a condition that makes the loop stop when it is met. There are two types of loops in Python, for loop and while loop. For loops repeat until a certain condition is met. Here is an example of a basic for loop. I is the variable that is used in the conditional, and it will be set to 0. It will increase by 1 each time a loop is repeated. The range 3 indicates where the loop will end. When I reaches the value of 3, it will be stopped. Note that once the value of I reaches 3, the code inside the loop will not be executed, so the output will be 0 new line, 1 new line, and 2 new line. Here is an example of a more complex for loop. The first number inside the loop is the starting number, and the second number is the ending number. The third number will be the value added to I each time the loop repeats. This loop will output 1 new line, 3 new line, and 5 new line. Let's move on to while loops. While loops repeat until a certain condition is met, similar to for loops. However, more complex conditions can be given, and the change in variables have to be written inside the loop. Looking at the example of the while loop, variable I is declared and is set to 0. Condition is given in the while loop will stop when I is no longer smaller than 3. The variable I increases by 1 as indicated in the loop. The output of the loop will be same as the previous basic for loop. 0 new line, 1 new line, 2 new line. We'll finish the video off here. We'll continue learning Python in the second part. Thank you for watching.